Welcome, this is Charlie from CIC News for You with a topic I hope will inform you about the Democratic nominee for president, Joe Biden. If you are like me, you are concerned, but do you know the reasons why you should be concerned? I will provide you some reasons for my concerns, reasons that the media seems to not be reporting on, or if they are reporting on it, some of these items are placed on the back page or hidden somewhere in the publication. Or, for TV, they might give it a 60-second spot and gloss over it. All of these efforts is to try to make Joe Biden a contender in the 2020 elections. In this video, I will cover some of the baggage that the media is glossing over or totally ignoring. Because each of us as citizens should know the background for anyone running for President of the United States. This is my effort to inform you. The key items that I will be focusing on is Biden's history on legislation and political stances. The media is absolutely quiet about Biden's past, and for good reasons. I'll explain later. So, a couple of facts about Joe Biden. He's 77 years old. Yep, 77. I'm not making judgments, but this could be an issue with some voters. Joe has been in politics for over 40 years. Get that? 40 years in politics. That's a problem. This is way too long. That is why our country is where we are. A bunch of lifetime politicians feeding their egos and pockets with taxpayer money, which is a whole other issue that I will discuss in another video. To wrap up this intro, Joe Biden was in the Senate from 1973 to 2009, and from 2009 to 2016, he was a two-term vice president under Obama. What needs to be highlighted is Biden's acts while he was in Congress. You would think it would be a one-pager with many, many accomplishments, but I don't think he has the material that the progressives are looking for. Biden has been on the wrong side of a lot of political decisions. Well, enough of this diatribe. Let's get into the Joe Biden, the Democratic presidential nominee. A nominee that is hiding in his basement, just like the House of Representatives are hiding in their homes. Let's continue. A funny thing about Joe. In 1974, during an interview, he described himself as a liberal on civil rights and liberties, senior citizens' concerns, and health care, but he's conservative on the other issues, including abortion and the draft. We'll talk about that abortion piece later. Okay, let's dig a bit further into his history. In 1984, Biden was a Democratic floor manager for the successful passage of the Comprehensive Crime Control Act. This act was responsible for the lockup of thousands upon thousands of blacks for what is now considered a far reach and a very bad bill. Of course, President Trump historically updated this bill, turning around the wrongful arrests and imprisonment of thousands of blacks and whites. Although a lot more blacks than whites, I do have to say that. Joe Biden stated during this bill, it was for super predators on the street. That is how he classified blacks during this time. Where's the media on this comment? Joe did say this was a mistake. Okay, we all make mistakes, but this one cost many people their life and freedoms. So, in 1993, Joe voted for Act 10, USC 654. What was this legislation? It's the prohibition against homosexual contact as an element of military law. This is another mistake by the presidential nominee. Of course, we don't see any LGBT groups protesting against a policy they hated. I guess even LGBT groups have TDS, Trump Derangement Syndrome, and don't care as long as Trump is removed. Now that's sad. Oh well, strike two for Joe. Let's continue. In 1996, Biden voted for the Defense of Marriage Act. What did this act do? it prohibited the federal government from recognizing any same-sex marriage, barring individuals in such marriages from equal protection under federal law and allowing states to do the same. Where's the media? Where's LGBT? Funny how this is not in the news. I don't see Joe standing up and stating these as accomplishments. This is strike 3 of major legislation that this man voted for. How is he going to address this in debates? What can he say? Except, I'm sorry. Tell that to the thousands of lives he impacted. In the mid-70s, Biden was one of the Senate's leaders opposed to desegregation busing. I think this is another major mistake. We are out of strike, so we will just add bad decisions by a politician. And remember, this person is running for president. Do we trust this decision maker to be president? In my opinion, definitely not. The next bad decision is that Biden supported a measure by Senator Robert Byrd that forbade the use of federal funds to transport students beyond their closest school. Not a good look for Biden. He is supposed to be for the people of the black community. A lot of this shows that he wasn't. How about a major decision by Biden concerning abortion? Now remember, Joe Biden has stated he is a practicing Catholic. So this item is really concerning considering he threw away his core beliefs to obtain support from the progressives. Wow. In a dramatic reversal, Joe Biden, attending a DNC summit, announced he would call for a repeal of the Hyde Amendment against his moral beliefs. Anything for power. Quite disappointing. Do you know what the Hyde Amendment is? I'll tell you, it is the barring of federal funds to pay for abortion, except to save the life of the woman or if the pregnancy arises from incest or rape. Remember, Joe Biden is a supposedly practicing Catholic, but just like Nancy Pelosi, both have disregarded their beliefs for power. That is not uncommon, but the issue here is that they both still say they are practicing Catholics. I think not. Just so much to talk about. Let me wrap this up with a few items from Joe's history. There's a plagiarism incident in law school where he stated he graduated in the top half of his class, that he had attended law school on a full scholarship, and that he had received 3 degrees in college. Hey, that is some kind of accomplishments. Except each of these statements are untrue or an exaggeration, and that's being polite. Here's another one. Advisors and reporters pointed out that Biden falsely claimed to have marched in the civil rights movement. Wow, he's pretty forgetful. Oh, I forgot one major event in Joe's history that he no longer references. Joe pushed for the Iraq War while Democrats controlled the Senate. Get that? Democrats were in control. In addition, Biden was the chair of the Foreign Relations Committee. The chair. Joe pushed this legislation and was individually responsible for a lot of the deception, and he restricted testimony to get this approved. That is major news. I didn't have time to add this on the slide, but there's one last item I want to let you know about, and that's Joe Biden was part of the congressional destruction of Anita Hill during the Clarence Thomas hearings. Again, another apology from Biden. How many more apologies does he have? Joe was part of an attack on a Me Too person, although the Me Too group didn't exist at the time. I know there is more, but for now, it is quite apparent that Joe Biden has gone the way of Bernie Sanders and AOC. And I think this will be the downfall to his campaign. People are waking up and the word is getting out. History speaks volumes, and he can only hide for so long. Joe Biden becoming president is something we simply cannot let happen. In my opinion, of course. These are the facts, folks. Each and every one of these items can be validated quite easily by Google searches. All right, so given all that I just covered, it now makes sense why the Democrats want Joe Biden to stay in the basement. He has way too much baggage and doesn't have the capability to provide clear and understandable reasons for his actions. Actions that were all 180 degrees from what the progressives would do. In addition, even if he could semi-explain his actions, I don't think he could do it clearly and without a gaffe or comment that would totally hurt his campaign. So what's the issue? Banishment from the public. One of the primary leaders in the Democratic Party, Terry McAuliffe, states it quite well. Basically, Biden needs to stay safe in his confined area as set by the Democrats and progressives, with media support, of course. And McAuliffe is not the only liberal trying to contain Joe Biden under the excuse of the coronavirus. The liberals are trying to hide the Democratic nominee from the general public. Why? Because Biden has multiple issues. For one, he seems to make a gaffe each and every time he goes public. How would you like that for a president? And secondly, he has a lot of historical baggage that I covered, and he cannot explain logically, unless he basically says his numerous years in Congress were a total failure, and all of a sudden he has seen the light. Unfortunately, the only light Biden sees is power, so he's joined forces with Bernie Sanders, AOC, and other progressives. He has gone against his faith and previous beliefs. So how in the world can we put this liberal-controlled person in office? His time has come and gone, in my opinion. Terry McAuliffe, as I have placed on this slide, has stated he's fine in the basement. 2 people see him a day, his 2 body people. It's hard for the vice president to break through. The left is afraid. They're afraid to put him on a pedestal out in the public. That kind of sums it up on where he kind of fits in. All right. That brings us to the end of this video, and if you disagree with any of my presented facts, I suggest you do your research, and you let me know if I'm wrong. I did the research for you and am provided the references. Now it is time for you to be aware and help to make sure this person does not become our next president. We need to be responsible for a 3rd-time failure for a presidential nominee, Biden. His election would be a failure to all of us in this country, in my opinion. Have a great day. Be safe, be informed, and stay informed with CIC News for You. This is Charlie, signing off.